Hello and welcome to our Under 30 Under 30 live chat. My name is Jamie Hutchison, 30 Under 30 alumnus, head women's soccer coach at the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, and moderator for today's discussion. Today's panel of 30 Under 30 participants will be discussing different topics and experiences on team tactics. But before we get started with the questions, let's meet our 30 Under 30 panel. First of all, Morgan.
Hi, I'm Morgan Cathy, the head men's soccer coach at Whitworth University.
All right, and then Melissa, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Melissa Phillips. I'm an assistant women's soccer coach at University of Pennsylvania.
Fantastic. And Caitlin.
Hi, I'm Caitlin Okamoto. I'm the assistant women's soccer coach at the University of Maine.
Thank you. And last but not least, Peter.
Hi, how's it going? Peter Mills. I'm the assistant men's soccer coach at Bowdoin College.
Brilliant. So that's today's panel. And just another reminder, if any viewers have any questions during today's live chat, please tweet them to us using the hashtag NSCAA Live. So we'll get started with our first question, and we'll open this one up to Morgan. And the first question is, what does your pre-game scouting usually look like?
Yeah, I think the pre-game scouting routine for us usually begins in the non-conference schedule. So if we can have a opportunity, especially in our context of college soccer, to watch opponents either live stream or in person somehow, where we can especially see our non-conference opponents or maybe new conference opponents, new coach changes, things like that, where we can see tendencies. So that usually starts in the beginning of the season for us, and then yeah, we look for a lot of different things within that. So we can kind of dive into that more, I think, throughout this topic. But yeah, that's kind of when it starts for us.
All right, good. Thanks for opening up with that. And Melissa, what are your thoughts on your pre-game scouting?
Yeah, our pre-game scouting has looked like a few different things over the years, and I think that one thing we've always tried to do is appeal to the generation of players that we're coaching. So I think initially we may have just done it via conversation about key attacking points, key defensive points, game plans, and personnel, and maybe set pieces, and evolved slowly over the years to do it off of a PowerPoint presentation and now into video with our PowerPoint, and just kind of appealing to the social side of everything, like what we're doing here with the video hangouts is presenting the information in a way that engages the players and connects to them.
Definitely, yeah, some good points. I think technology is playing more and more a big role in today's position as coaches and trying to educate our players on tactics. So does anyone else want to make some contributions on what their pre-game scouting is like on the panel? No? All right, okay, well, we'll move on to question 2. So this is going to be for Caitlin, and the question is, how far in advance are you preparing for each match?
Well, it's a good question, Jamie. I think as Melissa and Morgan talked about with their scouting, we try to kind of start getting ready logistically as early as possible for upcoming opponents, but at the same time, teams tend to change throughout the season, especially within the college season. You have a lot of games happening really rapidly, so it's balancing being prepared early, but not too early so that you don't miss things as you get closer. So typically, we try to put together before the preseason starts, sort of a whole schedule of games of upcoming opponents. People we might ask for scouts based on the other games they're playing, and especially the key games leading right up to the match that we're about to play against them later in the season. And then once the season gets started, I would say typically within a couple weeks of an opponent, we'll spend a little more time looking through video, calling other coaches and asking for scouts, going over any information we had from the year prior, and kind of putting together a game plan of what we foresee doing in the upcoming match. From a player's perspective, though, we like the players to be focused on whatever the next game is. So they don't really get any information on that game until it is the next game. So we might prepare 2 weeks out, but in terms of on-field tactics, we won't address any of that until we're in that week leading up to the game.
Okay, brilliant. Some good points there. Thank you for sharing, and I definitely agree. You want the players thinking at the task in hand, not too far down the line. So, Peter, what are your thoughts on how advanced you prep for your next game?
Yeah, I think that you brought up some great points about the college season and how it's your teams change based off injuries or just how quickly the games are coming. If you try to a team may look very different halfway through the season than they did at the beginning of the year. I think that some of that work goes even as far back though as in your recruiting process. As you're thinking about players for your team, and you're thinking a little bit about as kind of general tendencies that teams have within your league or within your the teams that you'll play. Kind of thinking about recruiting players and the types of players that you're going to have to come up against, and that kind of influences your decisions about the players that you're recruiting or the players that you want. So you're kind of kind of in the back of your mind, you're thinking about, oh, we've got to play this team once or twice a year. We're going to need players who are of this type of player or these types of players when playing those games. I think that and I think the other point that was just mentioned that about as coaches, you have a lot of information that you're kind of storing in your head, and how much of that are you sharing with your players without getting them to overthink or think too much or focus on an upcoming opponent. And I think that's finding trying to, as a coach, you kind of have in your head of your whole season and what the games look like and how much how much preparation you're going to need or the type of preparation you're going to need for an upcoming game. And you want to have try to be as prepared as possible to do that. But in terms of sharing that with the players, kind of you just want to kind of focus on game to game and taking it one step at a time. So it's the player versus coach kind of knowledge of the opponents is very different, I would say. So.
Brilliant. Thanks for sharing that, Peter. And I think you elaborated well on the balance between trying to keep your players, focused on the task, but as coaches, we have a lot to be thinking about for sure. So the next question we have is going to be from Morgan, and it is, what are the most important variables that come into play when deciding your game plan for each match? So,
yeah, for us, when we break down the opponent, we really look at 6 main categories, and I would say the most important of those categories, I'll kind of go maybe in order, for us is how they attack. What system do they play? Do they play an indirect style? Do they play a direct style? And from there, we'll know how we potentially want to set up against them to maybe limit their opportunities, limit their rhythm, or to find more success in what we want to do. So then we really look at how they defend as well, and how we can really be successful against certain situations in their defensive setup, mismatches where we can have numerical superiority, whether that's out wide, whether that's central. Do they high press us? That's a big thing for us. Are we going to be able to play out easily, or how are we going to prepare against how they press? Conference opponents, you usually can read their tendencies a little bit earlier, but non-conference opponents, I think for us, a lot more preparation goes into opponents we don't see on a regular basis, or at least a couple times a year, and then we look at, you can talk about all these things, but I think in the modern game, modern college soccer game, they say something like 40 to 50% of goals are scored on set pieces, and I think that's something that we try to prepare our players for in the scouting report ahead of time, what they look for on attacking corners, on defending corners, on free kicks. We play against a team that anything 60 yards and in is going to be a direct free kick into our box, so we and we know who they're looking for in those situations. So our players know who to mark tight, know who to maybe know where their counterattacking situations could come from as well out of set pieces. So set pieces, we look at key players' tendencies, who they really feel are important to the game. You know, we're at a Division III school where sometimes the disparity of extreme quality to maybe the average player on their team could be great. And so, you know, who are those exceptional players that can really beat you individually, and how can we limit their opportunities? And then we really look at how we can beat them. You know, I think it's important to continue to come back, and this is where the topic itself could be debated. You know, how much do you concentrate on your opponent? How much do you concentrate on yourself? And I think we try to constantly come back to us and make sure our players feel not just prepared, but feel confident that if we do what we are capable of doing, that we're prepared, but we're still going to make sure we're concentrating on us and being focused on us.
Brilliant. Loads of great, you know, detailed information you shared with us then. I just had a question for you, Morgan. All that information, you know, how do you draw the data from that? Do you use like 1, 2, 3 games? Just wondering how many games you look at to compile that information.
Yeah, we'll look at the latest game. You know, our conference that we play in mandates that there's an open sharing policy. So we'll be able to look at the latest game, and then we'll look at past tendencies of our conference opponents, and then we'll try to make sure, again, our non-conference opponents or even postseason opponents, that we're really prepared in advance. And so we'll compile as much information as we can. You know, some coaches, it's great. You'll ask for maybe a scouting report, and they'll give you 3 points and say that this is what you need to do, and then another coach will give you 15 points. So we'll kind of compile that information and really make sure we feel that it fits the way that we scout, and the way that our information is relayed to our players, because we want our players to never feel like an opponent is more important than the next opponent. So we don't want to give them information that's saying, oh, you know, we're going to give you 40 points going into this game, whereas last week we played a team that we felt more confident, so we only gave you 3 points. We want our players to have the consistency of our scouting reports, be very consistent, whoever the opponent is. So that's important to us. Does that answer the question?
It does. Awesome. I love the way you address the psychological aspect as well. So I'd like to move on and ask Caitlin, what are your thoughts, you know, the important variables when you're deciding the game plan for each game?
Definitely. Well, I think Morgan covered a lot of ground and brought up some really good points, especially in relation to the opponent. You know, I think key offensive and defensive tendencies of the other team, any key personnel and players. You know, obviously we do something similar. We look at definitely the last 2 or 3 games. If especially in conference, we'll look at all the conference games of those opponents, because our conference also makes all games available. Non-conference opponents, we try to do the same thing if we can find live streams of games, etc. But yeah, key personnel, attacking, defending tendencies, style of play, and definitely set pieces is a huge component. But I think one of the bigger important things for us is focusing on our team and where we're at in the season. So we gather all that information, but really the more important thing is how's our health? You know, what's our long-term goal? Are we at the beginning of the season? Are we going to try a few different things against an opponent? Are we in our last conference game and we need a win to get, you know, into the conference tournament? So kind of looking at where we're at with our personnel, how our style of play matches up with the opponents, and then paring down the information in the game plan so that it's simple and concise for the players, but we also have the background knowledge and ability to adjust on the fly if we need to. So I think it's a delicate balance of gathering as much information as you can, but not spending too much time so you take away from your own focus of what your team's doing.
Some great points there, Caitlin, and I like the way how you explained, you know, you break it down to the players, make it very simple for them, and also, each game may be a different circumstance depending on the time of the year, pre-season, etc. Different focuses. So great. Any of the other panelists, do you want to add some thoughts, some comments to that question? All right. Okay, we move on. So the next question is going to be for Melissa, and it's how important is the balance between playing your game and adjusting to the game against another team's style?
Yeah, now you're getting the perspective of 4 college coaches here. So I think kind of addressing this question, it's really important to gauge how much your players can retain based on their age level and what competition they're playing at, depending on how early we're going to start scouting reports, or if it's a youth coaching situation, taking into account that you might only have a 5 minutes to give them some information pregame. Whereas the college season, we kind of might prepare for it weeks in advance or a week in advance or leading up to that game throughout our training session. So for me, Morgan hit some great points on this. It's always going to be about building confidence with your players, and the best way you do that is to prepare them for the match. And it's a fine line to balance enough information, but not too much. But I feel as though if they are aware and prepared of the key players or any set piece situations that could be susceptible, then they're going to have some confidence going into those situations, and likewise into the attack, where if they know areas they can exploit, and keeping it simple to just a few points, I think that you make the focus much more about your team, which is something that we want to do as well. We want to make it so that our players know their game plan and we're executing that way, and that gives us halftime to perhaps adjust if we need to make any changes based off of the opponents. But I think it's always going to be more geared towards playing our game than another team's style. And now that might differ from preseason opponents versus conference opponents just because you see them a bit more. But I think it's just gauging your players, what they can retain, and building confidence.
All right, some great points, Melissa. I like how you touched on the fact that you really got to focus on your own game plan because you can't control the opponents. And Peter, I want to get your views on this. So over to you.
Yeah, I think to some extent this is a major question when you're thinking about preparing for an opponent, especially kind of at the college level. And I think I think it depends on there's a lot of factors that goes into it. I mean, it's kind of where your philosophy as a coach, how much are you willing to be kind of more reactive to your opponent, or how much you're going to have just kind of put your head down and say, this is how we're going to play, and we're going to do it against every opponent, regardless of whether they're a big team, a physical team, a small team, etc. And I think that, I think kind of your philosophy and your coaching philosophy kind of has it to play into that. I think the other factors that, that kind of go into play it is kind of what you think about your opponent, what knowledge or what information you have about your opponent, and kind of where you see your team at that point. Do you have a lot of injuries? Do you have a lot of, how do the matchup? Do you have a lot of injuries? Is it a rainy day? Is it a hot day? Is this a team that's very fast and physical? There are like a lot of factors that you're kind of considering in terms of debating that question, and it can change, I guess, kind of either game to game or opponent to opponent or whatever. But I think that you have as a coach, you're trying to establish kind of a team identity, kind of again focusing on yourself and having an identity that you of kind of the style that you want to play and the way you want to play, and opponent to opponent it may change, like the tactics may change, but you have like an identity that you are going to bring into every game, and whether you play more defensive or you sit back more, you're pressing higher, or those type of decisions may vary game to game, but your kind of overall team identity and the way that you want to play may not change that much going into the game, So, but I think those are kind of factors that you're considering as you're thinking about, that question of, we're playing this team and, they're significantly better than us, so how do we set up in a way that, gets us a helps, for college, how do you get a result that, is good? Or, maybe if they're younger kids, like you kind of I think Melissa addressed a little bit about the, if they're younger kids, how much is teaching the fundamentals of playing. Even if you could be 8-0, by a team that's better than you, how much are you, kind of the functionality of playing. So I said, it depends. There are a lot of factors that it depends on, and I think at the college level, you're making some of those decisions about the opponent and where you are with your team. So at that moment.
All right, brilliant. Thanks, Peter. Some good points. I definitely agree in regards to having your coaching philosophy, channeling through all the way through your pre-game scouting reports, and because you want the players to have an identity that you as a team have agreed on and you recognize. So that's awesome. Does anyone else on the panel want to make some comments on that question? Okay, so the next question is opened up for everyone, so we do need someone to jump in and answer. But it is, it's an awesome question as well. How do you get your team to buy into the tactics designed by the coaching staff? So who wants to have some comments on that first?
I'll go for it. I think that to get your team to buy in in any organization really comes to do with trust. And I think that if you're building a trusting relationship with your players where they feel they are going into a game prepared and they know their opponents and they feel like tactically the way that we've set up against the opponent we're going to be successful, then that can come out in the first 2 minutes of a game. I've seen that come out in a negative context 2 minutes into a game where they're overwhelmed completely as well. But if you can do that consistently, so if you can build that trust that your players really value your scouting, value your tactical setup, value how you're preparing your team, that's going to build a huge confidence, and that's going to create more of a buy-in. Like Melissa said earlier, I think that that's one of the most important reasons that we do prepare in this way, is that we're really setting our players up to be successful. But more than that, we're setting up our programs to be successful, because if we continue to have a trusting relationship and one that our players really value our input, then it's going to be anything. You're going to tell them to go brush their teeth a certain way, and they're going to do it that way. So I think that that's an important part of the process. I think it's an important little tool that we can use to build team culture and a buy-in on other areas, not just our tactical setup in certain situations of the game. So I think that it's huge.
Awesome, thank you, Peter. I really agree with some of your points there, and it's trust is a habit built over time, and if your players believe in the scouting reports, they're going to take your word for it, and that's a fantastic point you made. Anyone else want to add their thoughts or comments to the question?
Yeah, I'll jump in on it. That on that trust component piece of it is that a good way to build trust is providing them with accurate information on a consistent basis, and that's our job as coaches to really do our homework. If we're going to present information, that we also present it with some conviction ourselves, because we have done our research, we've analyzed every different angle of it, and we're not just regurgitating information that somebody else might have given us, but we actually take the time and see these teams play if possible, whether it's live streamed or and really presenting accurate information, I think, is going to build that trust, and like Morgan said, just build a culture of it where that trickles over into a lot of other areas of your program.
Definitely, Melissa. It's another good point. They're going to see through you if you're fake, so you better know your information inside out and truly believe it and be convicted when you present it to the players. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think one thing I'll add to that as well is, I knew a coach that would prepare the team with a scouting report, and he would put it outside his office for the players to pick up if they wanted to. And he would refer to maybe 2 or 3 points before the game about that scouting report, but didn't maybe make it a mandated information that they were receiving on a Wednesday and preparing a scout team on a Thursday, so on and so on. And so it's funny because that relationship, what starts to happen is, okay, well, if they go into the game unprepared, then what's the outcome? The coach is saying, okay, to the players, well, you didn't read the scouting report. So now it's maybe putting a little bit too much responsibility on the players and creating a relationship where there might not be as much trust, where players maybe are afraid of failing in games, and so they're doing things out of fear rather than feeling like the coach is for them. The coach is creating an environment that is for them to be successful. So I think that can really come across in your philosophy. Are you a coach that's really wants to create an environment that players are, under an impression that they need to walk on eggshells and thinking of things that they're not told what to do? They have to really go out and be proactive to win the approval of their coach, which a lot of programs do, and they're very, very successful. But I think it shows what your philosophy is as well. And for us, we really want our players to feel supported, to feel that we are doing as much as we can to make them successful in any area of life. And I think that soccer's just, this is a good way that we can show them that we're doing a lot to make them successful.
And Jamie, if I could add something.
Yeah, of course.
To the point. I mean, I think both Melissa and Morgan were spot on with the trust factor. If the culture of trust is there, then the players will buy into kind of whatever the tactical game plan is going in. And I think one thing that I found in recent years is players, at least at the college level these days, they really value when a coach understands what type of information in terms of a scout, how they like it presented, how much they want to know. So some players want to come in and watch video clips and want to see what they're up against. Other players, they want 3 key points and that's all they want to focus on. Some they want to read, some they want to see it visually, some want to go through the tactical board, and being able to clue in on individual players and what their needs are in terms of preparation, I think also adds to building trust, along with sort of your bigger general scouts and game plans for pregame and what have you. So I think that piece is really important right now in the modern game, and for the modern player, they want to know and they want to be invested, and they appreciate and buy in more when they see the coach is invested in teaching them in a way that works for them.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I had just a couple. I thought Melissa, you brought up a great point about like having a team to buy in, and you have to have the culture of trust, that the players trust the coach. But I thought it has to work. Like if it doesn't, if you kind of have this tactical game plan, and it if you have this tactical game plan and you kind of spell it out to the players, you present it in a way, and they believe in you, and it goes out and it works, all of a sudden, I think your team believes in you. That now you have credibility with your players. That hey, when coach says that we're going to play this way today, they'll do it. Versus maybe you went out there and time after time it doesn't work, and all of a sudden the players are like, well, coach, whatever coach said in the beginning, like, I don't need to listen to that. He's wrong every time, so I'm going to do what I want to do. So I think you have to, doing your preparation and being as prepared as you can as a coach, and then presenting that to the players, and then it's gotta work. And if it doesn't work as a coach, kind of going back to the drawing board and saying, all right, like, being reflective in that it's not just it didn't work because the players didn't do it. Maybe I had a different. Maybe I need to do a better job of presenting that, or I need to, it didn't work today, so next time when the same problem or the same situation is presented, I'm going to do things a little differently, and not just kind of saying, well, if tactics are right, the players didn't get done. I think that's I think to some degree to get players to believe in you, you have to get what you present to them has to work, and that will help your team have belief in themselves and in you as the coach. So.
Awesome. I thought the whole panel answered that question really well. Lots of good information. So we've got a little bit of time to take a couple of questions from some of our viewers. And Morgan, you're going to be up first, so just be prepared. The first question we have is, as college coaches, how do you break freshmen into the routine of scouting reports and pre-game prep that perhaps they haven't experienced on the youth club or high school levels?
Yeah, I was just thinking of that question as we were talking. So I think it's such a new environment for them, and some new players come into it, and obviously their youth club, academy structures maybe don't do any of what we're talking about in preparation for games, which I don't think at the youth level maybe they need to. I think they do need to continue to concentrate on how they're developed positionally, how they're really preparing them for the college game. And because the college game is a game that a lot of schools and programs are built around results, and success is defined by results a lot of times in college soccer, that players come into that environment and now they need to be ready to really play for a team and play for a system, play for a style. And so what we do for us is we really prepare our players even through the recruiting processes. As Peter mentioned, we recruit positionally, and we make sure our players know that come in that what their roles and expectations are positionally. And we even tell them when we play against this system, this is how we play, because usually in this system, this is where the space is going to be for us. These are the patterns that we look for. So those are conversations that we enter really early on, and players are prepared in advance. We make sure players come and see us play. So that's a big thing. We try not to take incoming players without really seeing how we do things, and usually that process, they come to a pregame talk where we will go through the scouting reports again, and they'll see it. The players have it, and we'll go through it, and so that's it's part of it. I think that they know that this is coming, and they know that this is something that they're gonna welcome. So. And again, it's the trusting relationship of your players, because I'm sure if the undertone of your team is, oh, we have to go to this pregame meal and we're going to have to sit through 3 hours of a pregame talk, and I can't handle this, well, of course your incoming players are going to pick that up when they're on their visits. But if they know, hey, you come here, like we do this, we do that, this is what we do, and we love doing it. And we feel like our coaching staff really prepares us well ahead of time, then they're going to come in and they're going to buy into it as well if that's part of your culture. So, yeah, I think those are all things that you can do well to prepare your players that are coming in, that this is a part of what you do.
Brilliant, Morgan. Yeah, some very good points about getting your players used to the culture before they even arrive on campus. So that's awesome. Caitlin, can we put you on the spot as well and ask your thoughts? I'll repeat the question if you like. It's as college coaches, how do we break freshmen into the routine of scouting reports and pre-game prep that perhaps they haven't experienced on the youth or club high school levels?
Yeah, I think what Morgan hit on in terms of the recruiting process, they're enlightened a little bit as to the preparation that goes into each game, which is almost always more than they've done at the club level. But I think a lot of it happens with experience, as they start to incorporate themselves into the team, as they see how their older teammates address each game and prepare themselves. I think they have to get into that environment and sort of feel their way through, and I think that's where preseason games and initial non-conference games are so important, because they're still adapting to what we're asking them to prepare for, both mentally and tactically and physically. So I think a lot of it happens within that first year on the fly, and as a coach you adapt. You know that it's going to take them maybe a little longer to process. You might have to keep things a little simpler for them in the beginning, and then based on how they adapt, you build from there. But that's part of the 4-year learning experience as a college athlete, and you try to help them and accelerate that as much as possible.
All right, brilliant. Thank you, Caitlin. Some good points there. We got time for one more question, and we'll start with Peter on this. So the first question, well, the question is, what if your pre-game plan isn't working at halftime? How do you address potential changing of the entire team plan during the halftime period?
It's a really good question, because I think part of that is that you as a coach have to kind of be humble enough to say, like, what we thought was going to happen isn't working right now, so having that humility of what we kind of saying to the team, almost like, what we're doing isn't working, we've got to change this, and that takes being humble. But I think that I think that if it's not working, you've got to also have the courage to change it, and as a coach, kind of relying on your experience and relying on the other kind of prep work that you've done, as much as you want to kind of specialize on one opponent, there are other kind of fundamental components, to your team that you're hopefully coaching, over the course of the season, so it's not just for this specific game, but it's also the kind of the building blocks that you've done that allows you to be able to adjust and make those adjustments at halftime. So you can kind of go based off your experience, as a coach, and again, the games that you may have coached in the past, or what's it called, the lessons you've learned or what you know about your team, kind of using that knowledge to make those adjustments and having the courage to go ahead and do it. If it's not working, change it. So.
Awesome. Yeah, I think you made a great point about coaches having to be humble. Maybe put your hands up and say, look, guys, I got that wrong today, and make sure you're readjusting during the halftime so you're ready to deliver the new plan. And Melissa, I'll repeat the question again, but want to hear your thoughts on this. So it was, if your pre-game plan isn't working, how do you address the team potentially to change the plan during the halftime talk?
Yeah, and I think that this can happen. I mean, maybe it's not a situation where we saw it coming. Maybe it's a situation where the team that you're playing against changed their style of play for you specifically as an opponent, and so it's something you might see fairly often, especially if you're one of the top teams in your conference, that other teams might be kind of catering. They might want to press you, or they might want to sit in on you, and that will change the game dramatically from the information that you gave your players. So just echoing what Peter said, that to have some humility and to have the courage to change it. It's no different than a training session that you might have ran 15 times over, but you get this one group of kids that it's not working with. You have to adjust the grid shape or the size or the numbers in it to make it work and to make the concepts come across. It's the same thing at halftime, is that you've got to be able to break down the team as the game's going on from what you know about them, but also from what they're presenting to you, and make those adjustments on the fly at half.
Yeah, just to kind of add on that, I think that, identifying why isn't it working? What is the is it like Melissa said, is it because the team has changed? Is it because so and so's not having a good game for your team? Is it because what is it because the weather's now turned bad, and now what you kind of initially planned is not going to work out? Kind of what is the reason for that what you thought is going on is not working, and then trying to, and again, making those adjustments. Maybe there's a person, there's someone on your bench who you didn't really think was going to be a factor in this game that can give you something in that game, or maybe it's changing the formation, or maybe there are kind of, I think, identifying kind of as you're sitting there at halftime and taking the few moments to kind of collect your thoughts and not just kind of why is this not working, and then trying to and making those adjustments. And you may get it wrong. You may not be able to make the adjustments and say, well, look, we have that, our plan is right, but we're down to nothing. But it's not because our plan's not right. It's not because of the tactics. It's because we've made a few mistakes, or this has happened, or referee, a call for us didn't go our way, or whatever it is. So I think that I think why is it not working, and then making those, trying to fix it from there is what you got to be thinking about.
Great. Thanks, Melissa and Peter. Some very good points. Loads of variables to consider during the game, and got to be able to identify and also be adaptable as coaches and a team. So unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks again to our panel and for the viewers. Applications for the 2015 30 under 30 class are now open, but it closes on June 15th. Visit nscaa.com to apply today. Also be sure to check out the NSCAA Summer Symposium back in Orlando from July 30th through August 2nd. And once again, thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you at our next live 30 under 30 chat. Thank you.